Welcome to the Ambitious Coach Lab, powered by 90. I'm your host, Dr. Cam Lawson. Each week, we explore the real tactics, tough conversations, and breakthrough moments that drive coaching success. Let's jump into today's episode. Well, hello, friends. I am so excited to welcome Pete Srodoski with us. He is a former CEO, COO, all of the things. He's a best-selling author, the creator of R3, a fellow Lego and Star Wars enthusiast. We were joking. I had my little C3PO, and he just happens to have a C3PO shirt on right now. So it was like, clearly this was meant to be. So, but no, Pete's been a good friend and just a great a resource, and I've learned so much from him over the years, just through content and just your humble approach to life. I've always just really appreciated. So when we were thinking about guests for this season two, I was like, man, I got to get Pete on here. This is gonna be awesome. So, man, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here, dude.
Yeah, Cam, thanks so much for having me on, man. I love chatting with you.
Yes, I love it. It's gonna be awesome. So to kick it off, why don't you share a little bit of kind of filling in some of the gaps, maybe of your just entrepreneur journey for those that maybe don't know you as well.
For sure. Yeah. So, I grew up in corporate retail early on. I'm a guy who started by bagging groceries, 14 years old and never got a college degree, just worked my way up the ladder, became a store manager at a really young age, 18 years old. Um, Running small retail stores and making my way up. I decided to leave corporate retail as a store manager of Dick's Sporting Goods at about 27 years old. By that time, I had run about 8 or 9 different retail stores,
Wow.
many at PetSmart and Target and Dick's Sporting Goods, and went into a frozen dessert company called King of Pops here in
Yes.
Atlanta. Yep. That's where I really got into small business entrepreneurship and understanding and learning about, hey, the world is your oyster. You can go do whatever it is that you want to do. And, if you want to go close this deal, go close it. Right. And there's nothing stopping you, which, boy, was that exciting. Right. For years and years and years, I was just an executor of somebody else's vision.
Hmm.
And this became the first time that I could just go craft something of my own, which was exciting and limitless, which is daunting, and to the wrong person could be analysis paralysis,
Hmm.
right? Because you could have way too much, and it could be overwhelming to the point where you can't make a decision. But
Hmm.
me, I'm somebody who just jumps immediately into something and never looks.
Hmm.
So it worked out perfectly for me, and I thrived. I quickly got promoted up the ranks and made my way up to a COO role. Um, a competitor offered me a CEO spot, ran my first company, which was a $30 million company out of Birmingham, Alabama, ran a few more companies, and decided to become a business coach. Um, this was based on a variety of different reasons, and I started writing books, but the main thing here was I no longer wanted to support one company. I really wanted to support more than one company at the same time. I wanted to help CEOs around the country. I wanted to help 20, 30, 40 CEOs and not just one at a time. And I also found this thing that was just so unique. The CEO really didn't care about what the COO had to say.
Hmm.
Um, it was they were blockers. They were in your way,
Hmm.
and a lot of times it was valuable, but it was also still like I'm the guy, I'm the boss, right?
Hmm.
And so the role of a CEO coach, especially an experienced CEO coach, the CEO looks at me more like a mentor and
Hmm.
somebody that they'll listen to and value my opinion, and it's a different relationship. So one
Yeah.
that I appreciate far more, and I think the CEO responds to far better. So having that and extrapolating it out, multiplying it by 20, I feel like I can provide so much more value that way.
Yes. Oh, I love that. There's, bits and pieces of that I didn't even know, so I appreciate you elaborating on that. So in this season, I really wanted to dive into like just stories, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of those things, right? Of just, I think when we were talking before this, we hit record, you said I think there's been about 150 CEOs and organizations that you've been able to, I'm gonna say meaningfully impact,
Yeah.
yes, coach, but like have a for real impact on. And so I'm assuming in those, there's quite a few situations. So can you share a little bit about, I mean, I'm assuming, you've already alluded to some of that tension that's there. But how do you go in and address that? Because I'm sure there is a little bit of, "Oh my gosh, this person is just standing in my way." And
Oh, yeah.
so how do you get into that almost, I would almost call it just emotionally charged environment when you first go into it? Like, do you have anything to like, for stories or examples of that?
I have so many. And this is a big thing. It's chapter 1 of my most recent book, Build Kick-Ass Teams. It's all about that elephant in the room that you just have to address it.
Mm,
I find that the most important thing that you do is just lay it all on the table, guys. Let's lay it all on the table. And so what I like to do is acknowledge it,
mm,
um, and say, "Hey, guys, we all have the same plan here. We all want this thing to succeed. Let's just acknowledge a couple of things and let's say it out loud,
mm,
right? You don't like you. You've got some problems with you. We know you guys that haven't worked out here recently.
mm,
We know you can't stand you. We know that you've got a problem with you.
mm,
Hey, we know that you guys have been fighting for a long time. We know that you don't trust you. We know none of the leadership team trusts itself."
mm.
Just saying those things out loud with that group of people, boy, it is pretty wild what those people will say once you can acknowledge that and
Yeah.
open up, allow that vulnerability, just slice through that vulnerability.
Hmm.
Um, but there's been multiple times. I mean, I've stopped fist fights in the
Phew.
middle of rooms. That was just very recent. In fact, we stopped a fist fight.
Oh my.
Uh, I had to asked the CEO to go take a step outside and walk around, and the other guy was about to walk out. The COO was about to walk out and quit, and I'm like, "Well, what happens if you quit?" Right? That's what I said to the COO. I said, "So you quit. You gotta go find another job, and what happens then?"
Hmm,
Right? You're out looking for another job. You've got 3, 4 more weeks. You gotta apply for something. Who knows if that hits?
hmm.
So why don't you just sit back down, right? Let's let cooler heads prevail.
Yeah.
And it actually it worked out, and they wound up working out well together, and the CEO called me later on and told me it was a fantastic conversation.
Hmm,
The CEO thanked me so much for mediating it. But the thing I'm just trying to say is just being there in the
yeah.
middle of it and not getting it charged back, not allowing that to reflect, absorbing all of that
Yeah.
anger, angst, frustration, emotional nature, and just, "Hey, guys, let's just deal with it."
Hmm.
That's killer.
Do you have a that's fascinating. My brain's going in like 2 different directions, so I'm just gonna choose one.
Do it. Go
Do
left.
you Yeah, there we go. Alright, perfect. Do you have a way that you, the word that comes to mind is retract that energy where you don't absorb it? Do you have any, like, tips or tricks about how you kinda, like, reflect that back to, "Okay, I'm not gonna take that because 'cause I'm an emotional person, right? Like, I
Yeah,
tend to be an empath where I'm gonna take on the emotion, like, I'm gonna be able to feel it, which is a huge, advantage going into a room, whether that's leadership team meeting or whatever it is, like, but I often carry a lot of that emotion, and I
yeah.
worry that coaches a lot of times will do that if you don't have the right mentality. So do you if you were speaking to someone like me that is gonna carry that emotion, how do I keep that in a almost arm's length way?
Yeah, so, I have this thing that I like to do where I quickly and instantly say, "What would I tell myself if I was coaching myself?"
Hmm,
Um, and it works. I do it embarrassingly. I'm going to say this out loud. I do this in my marriage. I've been
Yeah.
married for almost 14 years. We've got 5 kids. And it prevents me from responding emotionally to things.
Hmm.
And because I don't know why it distanced myself, and it creates some level of distance between an emotional response
Yeah.
and a way that a professional response. All of us, we look at ourselves as experienced professionals, and
Mhm.
we have the ability to measure our response emotionally or
Yeah.
objectively. And so I like to do that. I like to say, how would I respond to this
Hmm.
if I was being coached?
Yeah.
How would I tell my employee? How would I tell a CEO to respond to this?
Hmm.
And I could do it so fast now that it doesn't skip a beat.
Hmm.
So um, that's what I do. So I'm sitting in a meeting, and I have this charge, and I also I just kind of know that everyone's counting on me in that meeting
Hmm.
to hold the flank,
Yeah.
and it's important that I do. If I lose the room,
Mm.
I think that's critical. Like if I lose that room, that meeting's over.
Yeah.
That entire thing is toast. So it's absolutely critical that I'm holding that room, and that I'm holding that entire conversation together and not letting it getting emotionally overwhelmed.
Yeah. Is that something you learned over time? Like,
Oh yeah.
say, early, like,
Oh yeah.
because
Let me
I
tell you something. That's
yeah,
why you pay $700 an hour. I'm
yeah,
not like, I
right,
don't know. You
right.
you don't learn that. You don't learn that from an Instagram course. You
Yeah,
don't learn that from going to college. You learn
yeah.
that from getting assaulted on the job physically. You learn that from getting attacked by customers in
Mm.
retail stores. You get that from getting screamed at and yelled at and swore at
Yeah.
and threatened and having guns
Mm.
pulled on you and knives pulled on you your entire life.
Mm.
You get that because you've been through it all. You've experienced it all. You've had suicides in your office. You've had death in your office.
Mm.
You have seen everything. So nothing shocks you anymore.
Mm.
You don't get that because you've been a manager for 2 years. You get that
Right,
because you've been a manager for 20 years and nothing
right.
shocks you anymore. You're
Yeah,
used to it. You're neutered
yeah.
from the sensation of shock and emotional chargedness,
Mm.
right? And that's what you pay for. With a business coach, you pay for the experience,
Yep.
right? You're not paying for a methodology.
Right.
You're paying for the experience of, I know how to deal with this situation because I've dealt with it 5 times before.
Yeah.
And I've tried it twice this way and it didn't work,
Yep.
and I've tried it 3 times this way, and each time I've gotten better at it, and this is how I would recommend dealing with it.
Yeah, oh, that's so good. Because I remember I think you had alluded to that before, the rolling with the punches, that's literally what that came from, right?
Yes, and I wasn't gonna say that earlier, but yeah,
Yeah,
I've been assaulted.
yeah,
I've been
mm,
assaulted on the job and put in the emergency room,
mm,
and that's where the name "Roll with the Punches" came from. It
wow,
came from a physical assault, and yes, and that was where I wrote my first book from, Lead with
yeah,
Empathy, and it's you learn from your experiences,
mm,
right? And it's absolutely critical, and it's not the first time that someone's laid their hands on me. If anybody here's ever worked retail and they've said no to a customer who wants to make a return and that person's high
mm,
on drugs,
mm,
you've experienced what I'm gonna say. I mean, you
yeah,
know it, right? You've lived that life. Someone who's trying to steal and you're
mm,
trying to stop them from stealing and they're trying to get their fix.
yeah,
You've experienced this. You're putting yourself in harm's way.
mm,
So there y- you're used to emotionally charged situations,
yeah.
and you desensitize yourself to that over time.
Yeah, because you are and, hopefully, the physical side of things isn't necessarily a normal See, but I think what it does for you specifically is it's given you a perspective to understand, and then when people are getting I mean, an example that's prime, is the potential fist fight, and it's like, "Oh, wow, we need to actually get this under control," and you've walked through that before, which gives you so much value. So, is there, because the flip side of this, and I think this is something that we could spend some time here because I'm fascinated with this. Because obviously, like, coaches are the best at asking questions, right? You go in and you're asking the right thing, but there probably is a time in more emotionally charged things where sometimes you actually need the tension to play out a little bit. Maybe if that's the right word, where,
Yeah.
okay, I actually, as coach, need to stay silent and let this play out to a healthy level. Can you talk a little bit about that dynamic? Because they're probably, especially with like CEO to COO, like that's probably something that, is an easy example, but I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, and I just wanna comment slightly on something that we allowed to die just a second ago,
Yeah.
but I don't want it to. I want it to fester for a second, is that CEOs are the least accountable people in their building.
Hmm.
No one holds them accountable. There's no controls over a CEO.
Hmm.
150 CEOs that I've coached, they feel and there's this amazing amount of ego. In many cases, they feel like they have this godlike power
Hmm.
in their business.
Yeah.
And as a result, things get very quickly physical
Hmm.
or argumentative
Yeah.
or um, volatile
Hmm.
very quickly because who's going to tell them no?
Right.
Right? There's no one stopping them. No one has stopped
Hmm.
them for years. So when you say like, "Oh, I just gonna talk them down,"
Yeah.
that's just not reality. That just
Hmm.
and I'm not saying that it happens all the time, but you have
Right.
to be prepared on site in a tense, very confrontational situation that those
Yeah.
types of things happen,
Right.
especially in certain industries and environments. Um, but yeah, to your point, right? So sometimes you need to let those conversations marinate,
Hmm.
right? And that marinating makes the conversation healthier, the dynamic healthier because
Yeah.
it allows people to get things off of their chest. So what
Hmm.
I like to do is I like to tease. I like to pull stuff out of people.
Hmm.
So when I can tell somebody's starting to say something and then pulls back,
Hmm.
that's when I come out. So I'll sit there
Yeah.
quietly and I'll notice the COO start to step out and say something that they've been wanting to say. And I could tell then they pull back
Hmm.
and I'll stop them and I'll say, Jerry, say what you really want to say right now.
Hmm.
Because I'm going to tell you something. When
Yeah.
you leave this room, the only person's fault it is for you not saying what's on your mind right now, it's no longer Jim's fault, it's your fault.
Right.
So if you don't say what's on your mind, you can't go back to your wife
Hmm.
and tell her that he didn't listen.
Yeah.
Right now, it's Jerry's fault for not saying what's on his mind. And I guarantee 99% of the time, Jerry will say what's on his mind. And
Yeah.
that will tease out
Hmm.
a deeper, way, way more intense in friction
Yeah. But
driven
necessary.
necessary conversation, which
Yeah.
will scrape the heart of the issue and we'll actually get somewhere. And that's
Yeah.
when we get handshakes and hugs and we really get somewhere.
Hmm. That is, yeah, that's so good. It's almost like the person needs a little bit of permission to be able to go in and, okay, yeah, we're gonna go in and now, oh, I've been seen for that I have something to share, or I am under tension, or I'm frustrated, or whatever it is. So I'm seen for where the state that I'm in, and now I have permission to share with the group of, okay, now I can actually bring my piece that I've been wanting to share. Cause I think a lot of times you do, and I've seen this dynamic where you do have visionary leaders in there, we tend to dominate because it's just, and both position wise, but also personality wise. And so I think oftentimes you do have to bring the, I'm not gonna generalize it, but the more introverted or the more support type individuals from a personality standpoint, we need to bring them into the room and make sure they get that perspective, because often that's the most valuable perspective. Because like what I'm thinking up here in the clouds or in my, mindset of just, all right, I'm at the top. I need that perspective underneath, but oftentimes those people need that permission. So I think that's a really interesting like point that you bring out.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to say, they need validation, right? So
Hmm.
they need validation and they need an arbiter to do so, and I'm the arbiter.
Yeah.
So I'm the arbiter in the room who gives them the validation that they need to speak.
That's really good. Have you had a moment where um or maybe I could frame it in a success story where someone hasn't necessarily, gone in and just adopted some tool or framework or whatever, but like you've truly seen like life transformation through, you initially started with somebody and then as we're going through, oh wow, this relationship in this business reconciled, or this individual realized, wow, I am being just an asshole to everyone around me, and wow, I'm going to put in the work to actually change that. Do
Oh,
you have a success story?
oh, I've got a couple. Yeah, as soon as you said that last part about being an asshole,
Yeah.
one of the most interesting things, I've got quite a few CEOs, especially, the ego-driven ones, more in the attorney lanes,
Mm,
attorney, accountant, these highly specialized roles where the folks are, they're the only ones that know the craft.
mm,
And so not only do they have the ego of being the business owner, they have the ego of knowing the job.
yeah.
And so that ego of it's only me,
Mm,
right? So without calling out names or the industry or any,
sure.
but just saying an attorney, right?
Sure.
Let's just say an attorney. Specifically going in there and having one-on-one conversations and explaining the value of the leadership team.
Mm,
And you can't do it all by yourself. And let me explain what a leadership team and a healthy leadership team looks like. And let's reform when you should talk
mm,
in meetings. And I made that person sit till the very end of the meeting to say a word.
wow.
And boy, it killed
No
them,
doubt.
killed them because they wanted to respond every single time something came up.
Yep.
Let's just say she, right? So it killed her because I mean, she just had the answer. She wanted
Mm,
to, and she knew exactly what she wanted to say
yeah.
immediately. Somebody brought up the issue and she's like, "This is what we're gonna do, period." That's it.
Right.
But what she didn't realize is it was shutting down her entire team
Hmm.
from even opening their mouths. And she was creating this entire, structure. The leadership team wasn't a leadership team at all.
Huh.
It was this group of people who were just standing there waiting to be given orders. So there was no team.
Hmm.
There was a command structure. And, I don't think she would have listened to a fractional integrator or a
Mm,
fractional COO, but she listened to me as the CEO coach,
yeah.
somebody who, she's paying a lot of money
Sure.
to tell her what she's doing wrong. And I told her,
Right.
like, you have an ego problem and
Huh.
you're not letting your people talk.
Hmm.
And so what we're going to try is we're going to try you not talking at all the entire meeting till the
How'd
very.
she respond to that?
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah. I mean,
It was
like, in that
hor-
moment, it's funny, like
oh, it's horrible.
yeah.
You try telling somebody with an ego problem they have an ego.
Right. Can't imagine that was easy.
No, no, it was horrible. But I have a way about not being rude and
Yeah.
softening the blow. And I like to tell
Right.
people that your superpower is also your kryptonite. So let's
Yeah.
explain why,
Yeah.
why the thing that you're amazing at can flip itself on its head
Mm.
in the business. And so a lot of people respond well to telling them that the thing that they're amazing at has an ugly head to it.
Right.
And it wound up being phenomenal, right?
Mm.
So she started having incredible L10s um, that the team started rallying around
Hmm.
and started knocking out to dos and coming up with solutions without her.
Hmm.
And I remember her pulling me aside, it was months later, but she pulled me aside and she said, I've never had this much free time as an attorney in my life. And she goes, I want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's because of the fact that you've challenged me and told me
Hmm.
to shut up,
Yeah.
politely, of course, that I've been able to listen to my people and relax
Mm.
and allow them to start leading and me observing and verifying. I tell my CEOs that you need to turn into a chief verification officer,
Hmm.
chief validation officer,
Yeah.
rather than a chief executive officer. And I think she took that to heart.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's so cool to see and then I'm sure as she's seen the results in the organization of her, I'm sure it's a little bit of like humble pie. But, when you do see, oh, wow, the team is actually reaching the conclusion. And I think what that does, and I think a lot of leaders miss this, and I think coaches are such a good example of this because I can even compare and contrast consultants with coaches. And I think consultants have a great place in this world. There are times where you need to bring in an expert and get their opinion on things. But coaches have this cool ability, and I think good leaders have this ability too, is to help the people that are influenced by them come to that conclusion on their own. And
Oh, yeah.
coaches have this incredible ability to do that. So you did that with her. And then as she's seen, oh wow, my team, and you're probably getting more buy-in. I would imagine that her team is probably has a lot more buy-in and is like, "Yes, let's actually build this because they have a place in it," as opposed to just, "Okay, we're taking this vision and we're executing it and it's not ours." I think there's a big difference and gap for a lot of leaders, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah, and it's their first time doing it too, right?
Yeah.
They feel like for the first time their wings haven't been clipped,
Hmm.
they have the ability to fly, and that's pretty, empowering for a group of team members, if you wanna scale somewhere, if you wanna grow somewhere, having the ability to to thrive and to grow, that's that's incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally believe, W-2 is a trap, but
Hmm.
if you're in the W-2 world and you wanna scale, you wanna grow, and that's where you wanna be, and that's just the life you're in, and
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine. But if that's where you're at, you wanna be in a situation where it's growing.
Mhm.
You don't wanna be stagnant.
Right.
Stagnancy is death, and, uh, if you're going in and your boss is telling you what to do all day, every day, and you have no opportunity to grow, I mean, it's just a horrible
Right.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
It's
I totally agree with you. There's something to be said about there was a leader that I had, and he very early on pulled me aside. I was very young. I was early mid 20s, put into a position where I was leading a staff of 75 at the largest YMCA in South Carolina. And I made a lot of mistakes and I was not ready for that. And I will never forget, he pulled me into his room, or my office, and it was one of those offices that, those giant cinder blocks that they make, like, and, he said, I will never forget this. He said he pointed to the very top of it. He said, "We put you up here," and he said, "We didn't give you the foundation underneath that, and it's no wonder you're struggling." Like, and I was literally thinking about that this morning. And, that lesson and then he helped paved the way for me to understand, okay, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to invest in some leadership development for you. We're going to put you in this role that's probably going to be a little bit better fit for you to give you a runway to get some like assistant stuff. And it was just like, oh my gosh, you're not mad at me. You're not going to fire me because I made this mistake. And it was like, no, I'm going to walk with you. Why would I? You have so much drive. And the buy in that he got from me in that moment was like, dude, tell me what I need to do.
Yeah.
And it was such a powerful reframe that I think he let the emotion, and sure, I'm sure he was frustrated, but he got himself together before that conversation and had it to where we just got a good plan of action, didn't crush my spirit and make me feel like I was less than. It was just an all-around incredible leadership coaching moment that got the buy-in, and so I'm sure she probably experienced a lot of that. It's just like, "Hey," he leaned into me like, "What do you think? What do you need?" Oh, well, like, I'm able to think through that, and it was an amazing moment. So I'd imagine a lot of leaders that you work with have those moments with their employees where it's just like,
Oh,
"Oh
yeah.
my gosh," you know?
I'll tell you, I have a moment just like that as soon as you said that. I was 19 years old, and, a district manager of mine who was, I was a store manager, and a district manager of mine caught me lying.
Hmm.
And, I'm embarrassed. I was a teenager, and I
Sure.
lied about, something I told her I said I did,
Hmm,
a project in my store. And I just flat out lied. I said, "Yeah,
hmm,
I did it." And, she asked me to prove it. I couldn't prove it. And she said to me, she called me out and she said, "Pete, all you have in this world is your integrity.
hmm,
And when you lose it, you can't get it back."
mm.
That stuck with me
Yeah.
for, I don't know, a lot of years, right? 'Cause I was 19. That was a long time ago. I've said that so many times to people, and I've
Mhm.
never been able to lie to somebody.
Yeah.
Transparency and honesty have been
Right.
some of my key tenets since that day.
Mm.
Um, but that stuck with me, and the
Yeah.
fact that she decided to that day show grace, and
Mm.
the buy-in I gave her
Yes.
from I mean, I would the loyalty, the trust, it's interesting because that came back 20 some odd years later. Just this past week,
Huh.
we had an employee situation at one of my companies, and they were going to fire this girl.
Mm,
And everybody in the leadership team said, "Fire this girl, fire this girl, fire this girl." And I said, "Hey, let's pump our brakes.
mm,
Let's sit down. Let's have a conversation with her. Let's see what's
mm.
going on before we just go immediately fire her.
Yeah.
Let's have she deserves better than that. Let's just have a conversation with her. And if she approaches it one way, hey,
Yeah.
we can still terminate her.
Right.
But if she approaches it a different way, let's hear her out. Let's see what's going on."
Mm,
And sure enough, the entire team was wrong. They had perceived incorrectly for what she had did.
mm.
And the CEO pulled me aside after the meeting and said, "I almost made the worst decision of my career by firing one of my top employees
Wow.
without talking to her."
Yeah.
And he said, "I want to thank you for that,
Mm.
not allowing me to do that.
Yeah.
Because if I wasn't there, the entire team would have just terminated her."
Right. My dad has this line that he always says, and this is just one of those, there's a couple statements that become philosophical, like
Yeah.
foundations for you. But he instilled this in me. But the saying is, people are far more complex than our overly simplistic perception of them. And I love
Oh,
that
yeah.
because it's, man, all right, here's my perception of you that
Oh,
you are whatever. We need to fire you. And, people are a lot more complicated than that.
oh,
And in
yeah.
certain situations, like, sure, can people turn on some charm? And you have to understand it. But I think you can sense genuineness and authenticity when somebody comes in with the right mindset. And so I'm with you, man. I think there's a level of empathy, grace, whatever you want to call it, that is such an important part. And I'm assuming that's, a key part of probably the work that you do as a coach. But one thing that was just kinda a trend that I've over the last couple minutes that we've talked about, I wanted to ask you because I wonder if there is a level of trust that has to be developed with a leader when you're working with them. Is there a time period that you can quantify, or like when do leaders tend to open up? Does it take
Yeah.
some motions for you to kind of get deep to where we peel back the onion and we actually have the authentic self, and there's a level of trust where you can go in and actually hold somebody accountable like you do?
Yeah, there is. It's this weird, like, uncomfortable phase for, like, 2 or 3 weeks that we're
Yeah.
on calls where people are trying to gauge, "Do I know what I'm talking about?"
Mm,
And usually I'm having to make I make quick
yeah.
split decision calls, and I'm right a lot, whether it be through your P&L or your people decisions or recommendations or, how I would approach this or how I wouldn't approach this or what kind of problems you're probably having or what kind of
Mm,
problems you're not probably having and, I'm not always right, and sometimes, uh, people, it's just not it doesn't always hit, right?
mm,
And the vast majority of times it does, but there's this, like, uncomfortable 2 or 3 week period where person's kinda gauging, is this guy really know what he's talking about? Um, you know, there's a distrust in the coach community,
yeah, for sure.
um, big time.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't necessarily show, there's a distrust in people who show better than others,
Mm,
the suit and tie wearing,
right.
and then I intentionally show poorly, um, T-shirt exclusively, Legos and Star Wars
Yep,
cards in my
C3PO, come
background,
on now.
that's just who I am, right? Um, and so this thing is, there's just a little bit of uncomfort,
Mm,
I'm not cheap, and
yeah,
so, there's a bit of discomfort here. Am I getting what I paid for?
yeah.
But you give it a couple of weeks, you see what I can do, get me in your corner, have
Yeah.
us go through a couple of tough situations, and that's when, you kinda become a cavalier.
Hmm. That makes sense because there is, I know in any relationship, there's a level of time,
Yeah,
that has to pass in order for trust to deepen,
yeah,
and so there is, and I think, I do look back on coaches and facilitators that I have had in my life, whether it's through, EOS implementation or individual coaches. I think you're right. There is a little bit of a kinda just feeling each other out period of time, but I think there's always like a catalyst moment, where it's just like, okay, you know, usually the coach pushes it a little bit further than like has been comfortable, and then at that point it kinda opens up the floodgates to where it's like, okay, like we've got that level of trust, and or oh, that hurt. I didn't like that.
yeah, I've
So,
actually gotten that point a couple of times where I've pushed too hard
hmm,
and, gone too far.
yeah,
That's always been interesting because, sometimes you can push too hard.
mm,
That's been equally uncomfortable,
yeah,
um, especially when people are at some of their weakest,
mhm,
because I deal with, a lot of CEOs that are in very, in crisis mode. I'm not, in many cases, I feel like a CEO therapist, and
right.
I'm not exclusively dealing with people that are in different stages of EOS. I'm about probably half of my clients are just CEOs I'm coaching in a personal level on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And in many cases, they're, in crisis mode.
Mm,
And I've, you know, I've, as an example, I've answered a phone call at 11 o'clock
mm,
at night from a CEO who was threatening to kill himself.
mm,
And, I was able to stay on the line long enough to get his wife on the phone and for
mm,
them to call, a suicide hotline.
yeah.
So, there's been situations where, like, I can it's heavy stuff and
Yeah.
you could push too hard and crack break people. And I've sadly, I've pushed when I should have been just listening.
Hmm. Do you find that there is a level where you can kinda understand, is it intuition based, or is there a level of like, "Okay, I'm factoring in the time, I'm kind of factoring in, like, how hard I'm pushing," like, what helps you understand that line?
I think it's exclusively intuition.
Yeah, I
I
was
don't
g
think I don't think there's anything. I think you're reading the signs, you're reading the
yeah,
signals, you have a rapport with somebody. It's kinda like knowing whether or not your wife is mad at you,
right.
it's just, uh, yeah, I don't there's, because I can think back, like, all the clients I work with, the one thing about consistency with that is it's inconsistent.
Yeah,
There's just no way. So you have to just kind of, this is one of those things again where experience pays all the bills.
yeah,
It's not. I don't. Joining a franchise and becoming a coach is.
mm,
I don't know how that helps you one bit.
right. Is there any on the preliminary side and, like, almost the business development motion, that's, like, one of the core competencies we talk about a lot here on the show is, I mean, business development, you gotta be able to do business development. But is there a, mental checklist you're kinda, like, working with? Like, obviously, you may not know the full extent of the crisis, that somebody may be in, but is there any kind of mental checklists like green light, red light, that you're kind of going through when you're talking to somebody that's maybe, okay, this person isn't checking boxes. Maybe they aren't necessarily gonna be right fit to not be opened up or something like. Do you have any of that when you're talking to people?
Um, I think there are a couple of red flags for me, and the red flags are things that people say.
Mhm.
Um, Lack of accountability,
Mm.
lack of willingness to do,
Yeah.
willingness to be a participant. Frankly, I've been surrounded by terrible leaders my entire career.
Mm.
Um, and so, I have just a ton of examples of what bad looks like.
Yeah.
And so if I hear a lot of those types of words that those
Mm.
people have shared, I kinda am like, "Whew,
Maybe not the right
probably
fit.
probably not a good fit."
Yeah.
Um, I think whether or not it's subconscious or not, I find myself just distancing myself from those folks anyways.
Mhm.
So they don't even get to a point where
Sure.
we would get on a call,
Yeah.
because I'm not talking to them about coaching. I'm not. It's like it's like dating almost. Like we're
Right.
not gonna get to a point where we're talking about going on a date.
Yeah, there's not even that attraction. Like, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Um, is there anything that has changed in your, let's just call it coaching philosophy over the course of you being in this? Like, as you've gotten more experience, is there anything that you went in with like this is how it is, and now, looking back, you're like, "Nah, actually."
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So I came into this thing with like a framework
Yeah,
and this great plan, and here's how I'm going to do it, and here's going to be the steps and the methodology and my process, and
yeah.
here's how I'm going to roll through a process.
Hmm,
And oh boy, did that quickly go out the door,
hmm,
because what I found out is that um, every single situation I was encountering was different,
hmm.
and every single industry I'm encountering is different. So I am
Yeah.
not a specific industry. I'm not in a niche. I'm industry agnostic.
Hmm,
So whether it be slaughtering cattle or marketing or insurance or IT, I'm I'm dealing with everything. And
yeah.
so um, the industry paves the way the conversations look, and furthermore, the process can't be static. We have to be very open based on the experience level of the individuals for what the rollout needs to look like.
Hmm.
You can't just drop everything on them in day one,
Yeah.
what that looks like. We have to be cognizant of how experienced the people are, what their leadership level looks like, how much they can absorb,
Hmm.
how skilled they are, um, how skilled the CEO is. That's a huge one, right? Are they super involved with things like leadership books, and are they an experienced CEO? Are they engaged? How many hours are they involved? There's just a ton of different variables associated with it. And when you take all of these things into consideration, my perfect process I had, forget about it.
Hmm. Yeah. You can have, I had somebody call, d I won't give any, like, details away, but basically, like, those that are within a, a framework, they're teaching a framework, like, he called them page turners, right? Where it's just like, "Okay, we're, at this part of the process, we're on page 37, and this is where you should be at," and it's like,
What?
You you're working with humans, man. Like,
Yeah, like, what are you
like,
talking
you have no idea, like, and
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
love that because 'cause I've seen that as I've been in with some more, like, maybe
yeah.
not as experienced coaches, it's like, it throws them for a loop if something happens, and it's
No,
like, "Oh, you gotta forget all that." Like,
no.
so
You can't even start there.
right,
I don't even start there, right? Like,
right.
okay, first let's talk to your people.
Yeah.
That's what I start. Let's talk to your people. Let me absorb them. Let me soak up who they are. And then based on those conversations, then we'll understand what our next steps are, right? And I basically run through the 3 key tenets, which is where do we wanna go?
Hmm.
How are we gonna get there? And then let's get there. Those are the 3 key tenets,
Yeah.
and depending on what methodology I approach and how I attack it, that's gonna be based on
Hmm.
the people and the industry and so on and so forth, and
Yeah.
I may use many components of one or other methodologies,
Hmm.
um, but I c you can't. I just
Yeah.
I've done it too many times. It just doesn't it's not, it doesn't fit nicely within a chessboard.
Right. Oh, that's so true. Well, man, Pete, this has been awesome, dude. I have enjoyed this conversation so much. I've learned a tremendous amount. We've gotten really deep, and I love that. I didn't expect anything less.
Yeah, of course.
But dude, I always like to ask guests on kind of the tail end here. If you could go back to rookie Pete with all the knowledge and experience that you have now, what advice would you give rookie coach Pete?
Uh, Coach Pete or rookie Pete in just in his
However
career?
you want to take it.
My first thought was rookie career Pete, and I'll
Sure.
start there because that
Yeah.
was the where my answer came from, is, nobody will ever care about your career,
Huh.
so you need to care about your career.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that took me about 10 years, maybe 12 years of my life that, boy, did I waste. And I don't know, wasting is a tough word, but, um, whew, I felt like I burned through a lot of time,
Hmm.
because no one will ever care, about you as much as you. So that is absolutely critical. I think from a coaching standpoint, um, one of the things that is just super critical is, don't take yourself too seriously.
Hmm.
A lot of coaches, that's something, and I meet a lot of coaches, and boy, whew, it's a very arrogant bunch.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of ego,
Right.
especially at that senior level.
For sure.
I've been a this and I've been a that, and
Yeah.
I don't really care what you've been a, and I don't really care what I've been a, and
Yeah.
I've been a lot of things, and I don't really care what I've been.
How do you help?
I play with Star Wars toys and Legos with my kids. You know what? I don't
That's why
care.
we get along.
Yeah, you know, who cares?
Hmm. That's really, I appreciate you sharing that, even from both perspectives, and I think both would be relevant either way. Like,
Yeah.
so, I thank you for sharing that. The second thing I always like to ask is, what's a lesson you're in the middle of learning in this current moment?
Yeah, I think this one's, probably the tougher one right now, and,
Mm,
the first hardest thing I ever had to learn in my career was how to manage managers. That was
mm,
really hard early on, was manage people that actually cared about their jobs. That
yeah.
was super hard as a youngin'. The second hardest thing I had to learn was how to manage people remotely, which was
Hmm.
really difficult when I became a CEO and I was running people in different regions around the United States. That was, very difficult. I had territories and, different territories. That was really difficult. But the third hardest thing, which is what I'm learning right now, is how to duplicate myself.
Hmm.
And that's been incredibly challenging, is how to lead a company that requires me and scale a company that requires me to be the person that requires scaling.
Hmm.
And that's challenging, right? Because I'm a solopreneur and I have VAs and stuff like that, but I'm a solopreneur. In order to scale my business, I need to do something more than me be a solo coach or be
Yeah.
happy being a solo coach.
Right.
And then, do you lose that special sauce that you have
Mhm.
of being a solo coach?
Yeah.
And, there's books out there like Small Giants. Should you just be happy being a solo coach for the rest of your life? Like, can you just not have a quality of life there?
Hmm.
Right. So there's things like that going through your mind. And, there's all of these things, right? Is
Yeah.
the never ending, I need to make more money? Does that matter? Or
Hmm.
can we just be happy having a good quality of life?
We always talk about the true entrepreneurs are those that can't help but scale beyond themselves.
Yes.
And it sounds like that's where you're at. But yeah, I mean, I feel that because there is, especially in the coaching profession, because it's deeply personal work. I mean, you are the brand, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's like you are, coaches get hired because people like them.
Yeah.
And so that's what gets interesting. So, yeah, that's I appreciate you being vulnerable about that because I think that's a very real thing that a lot of coaches are facing, especially the ones that maybe aren't necessarily associated with a framework. So I appreciate you sharing that, man. Dude, this has been I appreciate this. This has been great. I What's a good place to if somebody maybe wants to pick your brain on something or learn more about you, what's the best place to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I write a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm on LinkedIn and I've got a newsletter on LinkedIn. I love writing. I've wrote
Yeah.
3 nonfiction books. I'm currently writing my first fiction novel right now. That'll be
Cool.
out soon. And I've already finished my fourth nonfiction novel that'll be coming out, not novel, but nonfiction book that'll be coming out soon. So yeah, www.rollwithpunch.com is my website, or find me on LinkedIn or Facebook for my writing.
Yes, I can attest to the fact that Pete's a great writer. I've enjoyed his content and also just the human side that you have. You have maintained a level of humility and humanity that I just really appreciate about you specifically. You are a prime example that I think because you're right. This is a very potentially arrogant profession. You have a lot of very successful people that transition. They're like, "Well, I can make a ton of money helping other people," and it's like, okay, that's a lot of times the focus is we can make a ton of money, and the helping people is sometimes not.
Yeah.
It's kind of the byproduct. But you have maintained such a an incredible reputation, and I think the world of you, and so I appreciate you coming on this show, man. It's been fun. So.
Thanks, Cam. I appreciate you, man.
Well, cool. Well, thank you for taking the time, and thank you for tuning in and listening to this. I hope this was helpful. I know it was for me. We have lots more episodes diving into all things coaching here coming soon. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
May the force be with you, Cam.
That's it for today's episode of the Ambitious Coach Lab. My hope is that something here helps you sharpen your craft and keep building a coaching practice you're proud of. Before we wrap, a quick thank you to our sponsor, 90. If you're coaching leadership teams, having your clients run their entire world in 90 truly elevates your work. Vision, rocks, scorecards, issues, it all lives in one centralized place. The clarity keeps your clients aligned between sessions and makes every conversation you have with them more focused and more impactful. I've used 90 with over 500 leadership teams, and I can tell you it makes great companies better and great coaches even more effective. Feel free to use promo code AC20 for 20% off. Again, that's AC20 for 20% off. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm Cam, cheering you on as you grow your ambitious coaching practice. We'll see you next time.